Basically from a debate we had in the Parliament just last week there, and the reason we put forward this debate, or said it was my debate, but others cross-party supported it, is because they're really, really worried about what's happening in the newspaper industries and the media as a whole. I said in the debate that it's strange that politicians are actually taking the part of reporters of something that we want. But I see some of these quotes here today from the band is one of them, which I have a great deal of respect for. Most reporters I do, regardless of where they tell I'm concerned, they say what I wanted to say, but the fact of the matter is they're independent, and that's why I think it's so important that we ensure that we do have an independent news force and media here in Scotland. Having spoken to various people, I dare say that the plan, and I believe the plan by Danny Group anyway, is basically to make us into some sort of a Hicktown American-type newspaper. That's what I've been told is a plan anyway, where various community groups can go online and put their news online, and basically people will read that, so you don't need the need for journalists. And that is a real worry, and that is what actually Danny Group are hoping to achieve by all the practices they have at the moment. We did have this debate, and I did get assurances from Jim Mather at the debate Minister for Enterprise regarding a meeting, and I've spoken to Paul about this and been in constant touch with him. When we had the debate, what I said was I would follow up some of the issues that I had raised, and I'm not going to reiterate them through the debate again. I think you all know, what the debate was about, and I concur with everything that's been said before. We need a decent media within Scotland, or otherwise I think we're really finished. We don't have a democratic, independent media. One of the first things I said to the Minister was that I was going to write to the Competitions Commission, because basically what they said at the beginning, you will probably be familiar with that, was really that for Gannett to actually take over these newspapers, they had to receive the assurances, and the assurances were that basically commercial considerations were likely to tell any attempt to adopt a different approach for the titles. But when you actually look at the way they're approaching that, there is a different approach. Basically, the independence of the news editors and the reporters are diminishing constantly. So I think that's a challenge to the Competition Commission, that they should actually relook at this particular issue. And I have written to the Competition Commission, and I'll pass the copy on to Paul if that's the right person to pass it on. And basically, the very last paragraph I mentioned, it's my understanding that the Commission has the power, therefore, to look at these proposed changes in relation to the assurances received and subsequently review the original decision in light of these new facts. It would be grateful if you could advise further on how this procedure could be enacted in this particular case. So I'm awaiting confirmation, or confirmation, a reply back from the Commission. So that's the first thing I did. The second thing I said was I was very concerned by the health and safety regulations and the report which came out from the health and safety itself, basically the regulator, and these were issues which I had raised, because obviously the amount of stress, and there's figures to prove that, the amount of stress was actually really off the page with the workers within the Herald and the Evening Times and other newspapers also, particularly these titles. And that was actually off the page practically of concern when they actually looked at that and inspected these newspaper titles before NewsQuest even decided to say, actually, you're going to have to apply for your jobs. We don't know if you're going to get them, but if you get them, it's going to be reduced wages, and you might have to do even more work. So you can imagine what the stress, and you all work in that industry. And I've had emails from various people, and I thank them very much for that. You can imagine the stress that going through just now is actually more than it was previous to that. So I've written to the Health and Safety Council, and I've asked them basically to look into this as well, and I'll just read the last paragraph as well on this particular one. The proposed change that the titles are being forced through without a proper risk assessment being taken of the consequences of job losses, leading to increased demand on remaining workers and new shift patterns, which in many cases will be very stressful for staff and their families. I would therefore be very grateful if you can inform me of what steps you will take to ensure that the well-being of the workers will be taken into account in any proposed changes, and I'll give Paul a copy of that letter also. So I have written the two letters, and I think that's the immediate thing to do, because we want to look at the long-term future of the newspaper and media industry within Scotland, but at the moment we want to try and tackle some of the discrepancies and some of the terrible working practices which has been put upon basically yourselves by the Gannett Group NewsQuest. And just to let you know, I'm not any great fan of Donald Martins, and I don't know if there's any spies in the house at the moment. Certainly there's been spies before who have got back to me who've been been able to report back to Newsquest and Tim Lodge as well. But I actually received an invitation to come and sit at his table to the Scotsman of the Year award. I've never received an invitation from him before, and I duly declined that invitation anyway, so I won't be attending the Scotsman of the Year awards. Another thing which was asked, we did ask him in the debate, was if we could look at the long-term future, or if we could get the unions and basically Garrett and anyone else round the table for a sort of a seminar, etc., to see what could come out of that, because obviously Paul told you yourself and told myself that Donald Martin had never had any connections with the union at all, although he did say to other folk he did, from a letter that was received by David Whitton, they had never actually spoke to anyone.
He lost 2 tribunals. He's almost unique in editors and listening to 2 tribunals.
I'm glad I'm not going to sit at his table. From there anyway. Absolutely could be, I would never know. I certainly would have been Scotsman of the Year anyway for some evening times as support.